Okay, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to this. Sorry? Oh, okay. Okay. Welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. Before we begin, I would like to make you aware of the fire instructions so you are aware of the procedure to follow if we need to evacuate the room. So there's no further fire drills or fire drill tests planned today. If you hear the alarm, please make your way down the stairs just as you came in there, and please do not use the lift. The fire assembly point is indicated by a green sign in the Knoll Road car park, and do not re-enter the building until you are told it is safe to do so. If you have any mobility problems, ask for instructions from myself. Okay. Item 1 on the agenda is election of a chair. Please, could I have a nomination for position of chair?
I nominate Councillor Barry White.
Perfect. And there's a seconder. And are there any other nominations? Nope. Okay, perfect. So Councillor White, you are duly elected as chair for this meeting. I'll now hand over to you.
Right, two things before we begin. When you speak, can everybody speak clearly and into the microphone? Because we've had a few problems with our system lately, and it's just so that members of the public on the live stream can hear and that we can all hear in the chamber as well. And also, before we begin, I'll ask my colleagues to introduce themselves. So if we start with Bob.
So my name's Bob
Microphone.
So my name's Bob Rakes, and I was elected in the recent election for Heatherside Council. I'm not an experienced councillor, so new to this.
Mark Gordon, Councillor for Bagshot.
And I'm Councillor Barry White. I'm Councillor for Bagshot also.
Rebecca Batten, I'm a solicitor with the Council advising the Licensing Committee.
Eddie Scott, I'm clerk in the meeting today.
I'm Frances Soper, Environmental Health and Licensing Manager.
Paula Barnshaw, Senior Licensing Officer.
Right, and the other member there is Councillor Kelvin Cook, who is our reserve member, just in case any one of us three decide we don't feel very well part the way through. Thank you.
So just to confirm, all the other officers here are just observing the meeting today.
Okay, item 2 on the agenda is a standard item relating to the declarations of interest. Would members of the subcommittee please confirm that they have no disclosable pecuniary or affected interest in the application before us this morning? Councillor Gordon.
I have no pecuniary interest, no interest in the club personally, but I am a DPS in Surrey Heath.
I have no interest in the club or pecuniary interest.
Yes, a designated premises supervisor, so I hold a liquor licence. In my full-time job, I'm a licensee of the King's Arms in Bagshot, so just to clear that for the record, I hold a licence.
All right, item 3 on our agenda is the procedure of the subcommittee meeting. The purpose of this item is to determine an application to review the club premises certificate of the Old Dean Bowling Club, Old Dean Recreation Ground, Wimbledon Road, Camberley, Surrey, GU 195AZ. Before we start, I would like to check that all those present have received copies of the papers. Sorry, you have to press the mic to hear. Only our secretary receives paperwork.
There's some spare. I'll
Oh.
get you some now.
Beg your pardon. Can you switch your mic off again, please? Okay, also before we start the hearing process, I would like to draw to your attention to item 3 on the agenda, where you will find set out the procedure that we will be following during the hearing. Do you all understand the order of the business which we will follow?
Thank you, Chair.
Everybody content? Okay, item 4, determination of an application to review the club premises certificate of the Old Dean Bowling Club, Old Dean Recreation Ground. If we're all ready, I will call upon Paula Barnshaw, the council's licensing officer, to present a summary of her report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Subcommittee. We're meeting today. The Licensing Subcommittee is meeting this morning to consider the application for the review of the Old Dean Bowling Club's club premises certificate. The application for review of the club premises certificate was received on the 24th of May 2023 and made by Surrey Police Inspector Sam Turner. Public notice was given in accordance with the statutory requirements under the Licensing Act 2003. A copy of the application was served on statutory consultees in accordance with the provisions contained within the Licensing Act 2003 and its associated regulations. The bowling club is situated on Wimbledon Road, Old Dean, Camberley, and has held a club premises certificate since 2005, when the Licensing Act 2003 came into force. Currently, it has approximately 60 members. The licensing authority received 17 representations from interested parties in support of the club. However, please note that some items mentioned within the representations are not relevant to the review application and should be discounted as they are not linked to the 4 licensing objectives. They are not relevant. Thank you.
Thank you. Panel will now hear representations from responsible authorities and any other parties. Please note that your written representations have been circulated to all parties to the hearing and have been read carefully by the panel. Would those addressing the committee clearly state their full name, who they represent when making their representations? No timing restrictions are in force for this committee, nor does it restrict the numbers of speakers from whom it will hear. However, please consider carefully whether you can add anything further to what may already have been said. Interested parties are reminded that the committee will not attach weight to the volume of oral submissions. The committee is only able to consider the review in relation to the 4 licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. I now call upon the clerk to confirm who the speakers are today.
Thank you, Chair. So today the speakers include Surrey Police, who were the party who submitted the application to review the club premises certificate. In terms of other interested parties, Councillor Trevor Hogg to my left and Councillors Garrett and Mears who have submitted representations who are online, and there's representatives of the licence holder, Old Dean Bowling Club reps.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the committee at this stage? No. Okay. Right, I now call upon Surrey Police representatives to present the police case for submitting the application to review the club premises certificate.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Peter Saville, not David. Well, maybe I'm David on Tuesdays. I don't know. I'm the barrister instructed by Surrey Police to present this application. As has been noted already, you have read a detailed application notice which has evidence in support, the witness statements of various police officers. And you will also have seen in advance of this hearing a lengthy clip of CCTV footage which shows what the police say bluntly is an utterly disgraceful scene, a brawl, basically, and an incident of serious violent disorder in these premises. Nothing the police say, nothing I say, is in any way designed or intended to attack the club as a bowling club. The police have read the representations that are put in by the interested parties. We recognise, as is said in the application itself, that this is a valuable community asset. But what is shown on the night of the 14th of April is as far removed from the bowling club as it is possible to imagine. And it occurs, the police say, because there was, in spite of clear warnings only a matter of 6 or so months beforehand, a flagrant disregard for the rules and regulations that apply to club premises certificates. A private party was held, to which it is clear a number of non-members attend. Drunkenness, as you will have seen from the witness statements, is a particular feature. And starting with the gouging of the eyes of one individual, what then follows is a series of serious assaults. You will have seen that the injuries caused range from lacerations to the head. People are knocked unconscious, causing concussion that persists for a matter of weeks. You will have seen that in one case, someone sustained a fracture to their spine. This is incredibly serious behavior, incredibly serious breach of the trust that is reposed in the holders of club premises certificates. Now, in the seriousness, the police say cannot be overstated. Club premises certificates, as your papers tell you and as your legal advisor will tell you, enjoy a preferential position vis-à-vis premises licenses. They are not subject, they cannot be subject to the same degree of scrutiny that premises and licensed premises are, certainly so far as it concerns the police. The police can't just keep going in to club premises. But that preferential position comes in consequence of responsibilities and regulations and rules such as the bona fide operation rule, the 48-hour rule for members and guests. And if essentially premises like these abandon those practices and start operating as licensed premises without that regulation, then all sorts of problems arise. And that is clearly what has happened here, because the police say that in consequence, direct consequence of blatant mismanagement, blatant abuse of the preferential position that club premises are in, this serious disorder occurred. And it is for those reasons that the police invite the subcommittee to consider seriously the revocation of the club premises certificate, simply because of the seriousness of the misconduct displayed. If the subcommittee is not with the police on that, then you will have seen that the alternative proposal is one of suspension. You know you can suspend a certificate for up to 3 months. And that, the police say, has a twofold effect. One, it has the effect on deterring the operation of the premises from slipping back into the bad ways that clearly they had. But it also brings with it the opportunity for the club to reset, to ensure that there are robust rules that everyone realises and recognises they must comply with. It allows for the conditions that the police suggest to be added to the licence, training to take place, and for these premises, frankly, to sort themselves out. Because a repeat of the incident on the 14th of April is simply not thinkable. The conditions, I hope, are uncontroversial. There is nothing set out in the conditions that the police propose that is onerous. There is nothing set out in those conditions that is in any way unfair to a club premises. So, Chair, I probably addressed you longer than I intended to in any event, but that is all I would say. If you have questions, Rab Carney, who sits to my immediate left, is, of course, happy to answer them, as will I be so far as I can, but that's all I propose to say.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to add anything, Mr. Carney?
No, no, there's nothing to add, apart from what Peter has said, is that the police do understand the importance of the club on the actual Dean estate and what good it has done for the local community, for the bowling, etc., etc. And we do understand that. But the seriousness of this case, it was decided that the police wanted the committee to actually deal with the situation and the committee to make the decision regarding what action you're going to be taking. But I think Peter's covered everything that needs to be covered. There's nothing else that I can add to it.
Okay, thank you. Let him get back to his seat. Does the licence holder have any questions that they want to put to the Surrey Police representatives at this stage?
Yes, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. Sorry, that's me, yeah. Yeah, this is to Mr. Carney, really. Can I just clarify the geographical area you cover as licensing officer for Surrey Police?
Yeah, I cover all of Surrey.
Okay.
And I cover Waverley as well.
Okay.
I cover, at times I cover the whole of Waverley, so I've got quite a vast area to cover. But my main would be Farnham, Wrecklesham, Chirp, that side.
Okay. And can I ask you how long you've been in that role?
Yeah, well, I'm an ex-police officer, and when I retired from the police, I took up this job, and I've been doing it now for 16 years.
16 years, yeah. Okay. And in that 16 years, how many times have you been called to the Old Dean Bowling Club with regard to crime, disorder, public safety?
Since 2007, there has been 19 incidents reported from the bowling club. Right? 19, which in my view is not a lot, considering what some premises have. In the last 4 years, 4 or 5 years, we've had one serious incident. We've had this incident. We had another incident earlier on in the year at the club, which was a report of a sexual assault by one of your members. And in 2018, we had a couple of assaults which happened inside the club. But not that many, to be fair.
And can you can you clarify what criteria you would use to decide to put in an application for a licence review such as this?
The main reason that I decided to review this premise licence was myself and the council licensing manager had meetings with Mr Dick because we'd had information that he was holding private parties and non-members were attending. So we had a meeting with him, and basically I said to him, we explained to him he wasn't allowed to do it. He was aware of that, and then he started saying that the club is struggling and he's been doing it to get some money into the club. So basically we gave him a verbal warning. We said to him, you're not allowed to do that. And he completely disregarded what myself and the council licence officer said, and he carried on having his parties for which non-members were attending. And when this incident happened, we went to meet Mr Dick again, and again he said to me that, well, we had a party the day after this event and nothing happened. So even after this incident that happened, the day after there was another private party at the club, and he was in the position, well, nothing happened. It doesn't happen all the time. So that's the main reason I decided to review the licence of the club, because he as chairman, and I'm quite sure he wasn't letting the other committee members know what was going on, but he as chairman was responsible, and he was totally disregarding the advice that I gave him and the advice that the council licensing manager gave him. And that is the main reason that I decided that I was going to review the licence, which I got full support from my inspector.
Right. I'd like to respond later to some of the comments made by Mr Carney there, but I don't have any further questions for him.
Right, now I would like to invite other interested parties to present today, to present their cases. I think the first one is Councillor Trevor Hogg.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Trevor Hogg, County Councillor for Camberley East, which includes the Old Dean estate. And for the record, I'm not a member of the bowling club at this time, although I have been in the past. The recent events were extremely serious and for good reason caused the police to request a review. It is my view that concerns for revenue cause those in control to completely fail to exert proper control over the premises. In similar circumstances, from a more commercially based establishment, I would not be here. However, I'm speaking in support of the bowling club retaining its licence because of the very critical role the club plays in Old Dean as an area of social deprivation and how it supports community cohesion. The bowling club is the local community's only secular meeting place. The members generally are most unlikely to actually cause problems. In this case, it was people from outside who were allowed to come in who should not have been. The bowling club also provides an important venue for events such as NHS Living Well education sessions. It's used by the DWP for job fairs, and it's also been used by SHBC for community consultations. Surrey County Council are about to commence funding employability work in concert with the NHS and the DWP, focused on bringing those with mental health conditions back into full employment. This is a critical issue in Old Dean, where mental ill health issues associated with unemployment abound at the moment. And it requires a suitable location to work from. And the only really suitable one that exists is the bowling club. I think I'd ask the committee to note there have been some significant steps taken already to ensure there is no recurrence of the unfortunate events. The person previously in charge has resigned and been replaced, and those now involved in running the club are all too aware of the need to exert proper control now and in the future. Finally, I will also pick up on the club's finances are slim. Without the income from operating a bar for even a relatively short period, the club will probably cease to exist. And a community asset would be gone forever. I'm therefore asking you to just take the wider community impact into account when managing your decision.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg. Councillor Garrett, I believe you're online. Are you speaking for you and Councillor Mears, or is Councillor Mears present as well?
I think Councillor Mears is currently away, so I think I'll be speaking on behalf of him. And I've also been contacted by a couple of residents who couldn't make this afternoon, this morning even, a Connor Hayes and an Amy Taylor and a Mr. Rimmer, so sort of semi-representing them as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to say that obviously, as well as being the borough councillor, I'm also am a member of the bowling club. So obviously, that I need to make you aware of that. I think it's really, it's the biggest problem I have is that this does. I mean, basically, at the end of the day, what happened is unacceptable. There's no getting a way around that, as everybody's said so far. If you look at the 4 pillars, this pretty much knocks down, I think, practically every single one of them. So there's no getting around that. I fully understand that. And myself and Councillor Mears did have a meeting with the new committee of the bowling club. As Councillor Hogg has said, the chair that was there is no longer there. I believe that the information that was fed to him via the relevant licensing officers was never fed back to the main committee, which meant they were in a situation where they didn't know what had previously happened. I think the big issue for me, as Councillor Hogg has said, is the fact that this is a community space. Now, I know this doesn't come under the 4 pillars, but it actually is really important. This is a really important community space. There's obviously a large bowling club. There's a lot of people that use the bowling club, and the license helps with maintaining that club, with bringing extra funds in. It's fair to say that if the license was revoked for even a short period of time, this club could fold. So it's really from that respect, and once it's shut, it will never open again. So whilst I fully appreciate that the seriousness of this event and previous events that the committee were not aware of are unacceptable, it would be helpful if, when looking at the license, you take on board all of the full situation, and hopefully that's something that can be taken on board. I appreciate that from what Mr. Rubber said, there had been a 19, I think he said, instance in the last X amount of years, and I know this was obviously a serious one, but yeah, I mean, basically what I'm asking is everything to be taken into consideration. As a community space, it's really important within the community, and it has done in the past, helped a lot with charity events and things like that. So yeah, that's all really what I have to say. I know that that's the same sort of lines that Councillor Mears would have, and reference to representation. I know that the residents that have sent in letters are basically saying, obviously, it's a community space. They use it a lot. I think in some cases, some people weren't even aware of the events that had happened, and I know that the committee have looked at the points that came from Surrey Police and have basically, I think, agreed with every single point that's come back as being, these are things we need to change, and they appreciate they need to change them. And I also believe that they're also looking at certainly if they were able to carry on, that they would be not running any membership events for the foreseeable future. So yeah, that for me is about it, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Are there any questions regarding these submissions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, now move on to presentation by the licence holder to outline their case. Are you speaking? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, as Secretary of the Old Dean Bowling Club, I've made a representation on behalf of the club, as you will have received, and I'm aware that members and others have also submitted representations for consideration by the licensing subcommittee. Firstly, I'd like to say that we acknowledge that mistakes have been made, some of which were contributory to the violence that took place at the club in April. I would like to make a number of points in respect to that. Firstly, the then chairman had failed to apply for the premises licence as he was advised. We acknowledge that, though the committee at the time were not aware that the warnings that he'd received had been given and that the application that he'd been advised to make for a premises licence had not been made. So we were operating without knowledge of that. Certainly and as has been said, the then chairman has resigned his position. Certainly on the night in question of the event, we accept that we failed to properly scrutinise the application in the first place for the event at which the violence happened, and we certainly accept that we did not have adequate controls on non-members entering the club. These are all failings which we acknowledge. We would not argue those points. What we would say is that if we're given the opportunity to go forward, we intend to make a lot of changes. We intend to change the club rules. We will be appointing new officers to the committee to run the club. We would implement bar staff training and apply for personal licences for at least 2 of the committee members. We would also, as has been mentioned, implement other agreed conditions which has been submitted to meet the 4 licensing objectives as required. We have little problem with all of those except perhaps, and this may need some discussion, the issue of door supervision, because our basic proposal is that we would not be holding clearly non-member parties. Where a member was holding a party, we would make that member responsible for the admission of all non-members that have been invited to that event, and they will be responsible for supervising the entry. We feel that that would be sufficient to ensure that we didn't have non-members entering the club. We also think that we need to better inform the membership of the conditions, all the changes that were implemented, and indeed a bit of an education programme, if I can put it that way. So we accept our failings. We believe we know what we need to do to put it right to prevent a further occurrence of the violence that occurred. As has already been mentioned, I accept it's not an issue with regard to the 4 licensing objectives, but the club has limited reserves. COVID unfortunately hit the club very hard, as indeed lots of other organisations, and we have very little in the way of reserves that will be able to withstand any prolonged suspension of the licence. Obviously, if the licence were revoked, that would certainly mean the club was not sustainable and would close. That's what I want to say at this stage.
Okay, thank you. Do any other members of the committee have anything to say? Okay, do any members of this committee have any questions? Councillor Gordon.
Hi, I've got a few questions to ask regarding the running of the club, first of all. So, as a committee, obviously you're aware of the club rules of how a club licence works anyway. And I appreciate the chairman's taking the fall for this, but as a members' club, you can only let private parties to members rather than non-members, and that rule is being disregarded from the point of view of revenue. And that's been admitted by Mr. Carney and his meetings in September time. You've put you were unaware of the visit from the police, but surely you must have been aware that these parties were taking place that blatantly disregarded the club rules. Can you answer that question, please?
Microphone.
Yes, as I've said earlier, the club, at the time that our chairman was advised that if we wanted to have parties for non-members, we needed to have a premises licence. The committee at that time thought that that change had been made and that a premises licence was in fact held. So we had the situation where we thought the licence allowed us to have non-member parties, whilst the club rules remained on the old basis, if I can put it that way, of a members' club. So we had an untenable situation, really, because the club rules would have needed to have been changed. They weren't, and I think, you know, it's true to say that the committee was operating on the assumption, wrong assumption, that we had a premises licence effectively and that we could have non-member parties.
Further question for you. You've mentioned going forward, if licence were to be maintained, if a member hired a place for a party, the onus would be on the member to supervise who came in, who didn't come in. So if I booked a birthday party as a member in your club and I come in, are you then saying I've got to spend the entire evening sat at the front door policing who comes in? Or do I arrange someone for it? Surely that should be a function of the club to supervise members who comes in, not the person hiring the venue out. I don't understand how it's going to work in practice.
What we would expect to happen is that if it were a party that the guests would be invited to attend between 2 times, I don't know, 7 to 7:30, and at that specific time, the member would supervise the non-member guests. We also would request a written list of the prospective attendees so that we could check off who had arrived. And indeed, in practical terms, if a couple of people who were expected to arrive had not turned up, then the member would still be held responsible for the admission of the non-member. So that might be a family member who knows those individuals. So what I'm essentially saying is we would place the responsibility on the member. And clearly, if they didn't perform that function satisfactorily, then there would be repercussions. But we would expect that between 2 certain times, the non-member guests would be admitted, and that's it. So that would be how we'd expect to exert some control.
But from a practical point of view, surely it'd be more advisable to provide a member of staff to assist in that role, because, like I say, how are you going to police that? And in light of what's happened beforehand, when non-members have come in, first of all, just to pass the buck to the hirer, the member, and say, right, it's down to you, surely something be put in place to actually make sure that happens. So a member of your team or your committee or your staff or your trained staff should be there to perform that role with a normal sign-in sheet to make sure that happens. I'm just a bit concerned that it appears like you're sort of washing your hands of it, really, and saying, that's okay, it's on you, really. I'd feel happy if there's a process in place, put by you, someone designated, whoever it is, say, right, you'll sit there for an hour, you mark them off the sheet. I think it's quite fair to say you need to put precepts in place to make sure that onus is on you, not passed to the guest.
Okay, I accept what you're saying, and I think that's a reasonable condition to apply, yeah.
So one further question, sorry, regarding the issue of security staff, with the SIA training staff. So before, in the past, where we've had issues in my premises many, many years ago, we volunteered to have several members of my team, my management team, SIA trained. So the cost wasn't incurred of having regular door staff for it, but I put staff on the rota, so not on a hands-on role. So during an event, for example, I wouldn't be down as a manager. I'd be free to walk around and perform SIA role. So maybe we could consider getting some of your staff SIA trained. That way you avoid the cost of regular outside security.
Yes.
But the staff on shift have that knowledge and have that issue, first of all, they can go around and perform the role, perhaps.
Certainly, carry on.
Just SI, is that?
SIA basically means licensed to Dormant.
Licensed dormant, yeah.
Yeah.
But individuals can go for it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, certainly, certainly I think that's a reasonable and sensible approach to the situation. Our concern would be the cost of 2 independent, if I can put it that way, SIA-trained operatives would probably make it economically not viable to do it. So that's why we would be open to suggestions of the best way to practically achieve that. But certainly that's what we want to achieve, yeah.
So the cost of SIA training internally, roughly, is about £500 per person. That's to get one person trained and a badge for a year.
Yes.
Would the club funds allow 2 of your management team or your staff so far to get them? Would you be prepared to pay that cost out to get them trained?
I think we'd be prepared to find a way of achieving that, yes.
We would. Okay, I have a question. Your bar staff, are they trained bar staff that are paid employees, or are they members of your club?
They're members of the club. They're not employees.
So they're not trained bar staff, so they...
They have received in-club training, if I can put it that way, but they have not been through a formal training program that's CPC accredited.
So would they be comfortable in refusing to serve?
Well, I think, as we've said, we would put all our bar staff through the training program, so they would be all accredited and therefore understand all the relevant conditions of the Licensing Act, Challenge 25, etc. So they would, as we've said, all the bar staff would be required to undergo that training. And if they failed to do that, then we'd no longer use them as bar staff.
Okay, thank you. Right, sorry. Okay, Councillor Gordon.
Regarding, a lot of areas have a pub watch scheme where places voluntarily work with other pubs in the area, do a scheme there, share communication, share concerns and things.
Yeah.
So I think going forward, it would be a good idea to make sure that the Old Dean was part of the Camberley Town pub watch scheme, attending regular meetings and communicated. That way, you'd have a thing called Scheme Link. So all the bar staff are aware of someone who's barred, for example, from the premises, from Camberley Town Centre to all the villages. The staff can access their photograph straight away. Because right now, at the moment now, you have no clue if a member signs in a non-member who is barred from Town Centre or for violent conduct or from the villages. So I'd suggest you join Pub Watch and become an active part of Scheme Link, so your bar staff have more confidence to know who can come in, who can't come in, and it gives them more, say, sense of security and a sense of just kind of knowing who isn't barred and who is barred. So it works for us really well. It's something we adopt. We play quite a vital part in it in our area, in the villages. I advise you definitely to consider doing the same.
Well, I think we'd be happy to embrace that, yeah.
Right, having heard the applicant's statement, are there any further matters the responsible authority and interested parties wish to bring to the subcommittee's attention? Mr. Carney.
Yeah, just regarding the conditions that the police have put forward. The reason that because I did the conditions, the reason that I put the door staff on the conditions is that, as far as I am still aware, that the club intends to get a premises licence sometime in the near future.
Yes, we felt that. Yes, we felt that right now we would seek to continue with the CPC, but 1 to 2 years down the line, when we have our management situation more under control, bar staff trained, etc., then we would consider. I mean, it would be decision for the club, a decision applying for a premises licence at that time?
Right, I do understand what you're saying, but with the licence that you've got now, the club certificate licence, members are, obviously, as you know, are allowed to, in most clubs, a member can have 2 guests signed into the club. Yeah?
Typical rule, yes.
Typical rule,
Yeah.
yeah. So there is the possibility that you could have quite a large amount of non-members in a private function for a member.
Well, okay, we'll carry on the point.
Yeah. The main point is that, again, you probably don't know, I've had conversations with Chris Dick in the past, and I assumed him being an experienced member of a club, running a club, and as the chairman, I suggested to him that do a risk assessment for every function that you intend to have for members as well, for members. And if you feel that it's going to be a large function, then do a risk assessment regarding having SIA security. Now, he's probably not even mentioned that to you. So that is something that you should look at. I would still prefer the door staff to be left on the conditions as they are. Yeah, but that's not my decision. It's the committee that will make that decision. The other point I'd like to make is that you stated that you were unaware that you didn't have a premises licence. You thought you got rid of your club certificate.
We thought the application had been made. Yeah.
Well, the way that an application works is that once the application has been applied for, then you have a 28-day consultation time, and then notices are placed up around the club, informing people that a premises licence had been applied for. So, had a licence been applied for, you would have known by coming into the club, because the notices would have been displayed, and notice has to be put in the local paper, which has to be paid for by the club, etc. So I can't understand why, as a committee, you didn't know that a premises licence hadn't been applied for, because had it been applied for, you would have known by the rules and regulations that go with it. Yeah?
Well,
that's what I'm trying to get across.
Well, you're describing the procedure that happens after a application for a premises licence. But if the committee was not aware of that process or that procedure, we can't know what we don't know.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, had a premises licence been applied for,
yes,
certain steps have to be taken for the club to pay for a newspaper advert, and notices would have been displayed in the club. By law, they have to be put up.
Okay.
So you would have known had a premises licence been applied for. That's what I'm trying to get across.
Okay, but the committee did not know that was the process. So we did not know that that's the process that happens.
Yeah.
So you can say we should have known, but we certainly didn't at that time. Well, the committee at that time didn't know.
Okay.
Chair, forgive me, through you, may I ask one question?
You may.
Thank you. Can I ask Mr. Turner, please, whether it's, assuming the certificate remains in place, is it the committee's intention that training of staff or members who are going to be involved in day-to-day activities in the club is going to be undertaken by an external training provider?
Yes, the training of the bar staff will be done. There are various options, online training programs. They will not be done by in-house staff. They will be done by externally accredited trainers. Yeah.
Do you know off the top of your head who undertook the training before? I think you mentioned there'd been some in-house training. Do you know who did that?
Well, the training that had been done before would have been done by a senior, either the bar supervisor or a previous bar steward, which we've had in the past, bar steward, bar supervisor. So in-house training by a senior member, if you like, of the bar staff. Sorry, does that answer your question? Or yes. Sorry. Okay. Until about a year ago, we had a bar steward, but that person left that sort of time ago. But up until that person would have taken on the...
Did your bar steward have a personal licence then? Was he a trained bar?
I don't believe he was, no.
Therefore, he wasn't qualified to train?
Correct. We accept that any training we do now has to be externally accredited.
Right. At this point in the proceedings, I will ask the licence holder, the review applicant and the interested parties who wish to sum up their cases. I would ask that you do not introduce any new information or evidence at this stage. So the licence holder, do you have anything you wish to say in summing up?
What I'd like to say is, sorry, I've turned it off now, yeah. Yeah, I think what I'd like to say is we accept the failings that led to what happened, and we accept that the club needs a reset. Something like this happening certainly gives us a platform to reorientate the club, reset the club. We believe that what went wrong in April can be fixed. What went wrong in April can be prevented from happening again, we believe, through the measures we've proposed, taking on conditions that have been proposed, and some of the suggestions from Councillor Gordon. You know, the bowling community in Surrey wants a thriving Old Dean Bowling Club. The Old Dean community, we think, deserves a orderly, family-friendly club resource, and we would like the opportunity to achieve that.
Thank you. Any other? Mr. Christie.
Thank you. I've been a member of Old Dean Bowling Club for 3 or 4 years now. I've bowled at Windersham before. Old Dean, very competitive, and they are the salt of the earth. They would help you beyond belief compared with other bowling clubs. I've also met a great many different sorts of people at the Old Dean, and I think that I acknowledge as part of the committee that we've erred, and what happened in April was unacceptable. However, as part of the bigger picture, I'd hope that you would look favourably on this case, and the fact that if the Old Dean closed down for any period of time would affect not only the Bowls Club but the immediate vicinity. Youngsters, adults play around the Bowls Club. Families feel that it's safe to have their children playing in the basketball area. It's a focus for the Old Dean. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just make it clear that we are not here to close the club down. We are here to review the licence of that club. nothing else to do with the club, just the alcohol licence. So we're not here to close the club down. Surrey Police, do you have summing up?
Chair, you've heard the application. You've heard enough from me already, I've no doubt. Can I just raise one matter? There's been an issue around door supervisors, and that focuses in on whether the committee is minded to impose condition 10, which is at page 29 of the pack, which is the condition relating to door supervisors. If the subcommittee is not minded to go with that condition as yet, could I suggest in the alternative to pick up the point that Mr. Carney made, a condition something like, prior to each function proposed to be held at the club, the committee shall undertake a risk assessment to assess the need for door supervision, or something in that nature.
Noted, thank you. Would the interested parties like to say anything in the summing up? Councillor Hogg?
Only to reiterate the importance to the community and that there is evidence of a desire to change. I think the committee will actually have to really step up to the mark.
Thank you. Councillor Garrett?
I'm just going to echo what Councillor Hogg said and move on.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Gordon would like to ask another question.
You mentioned the club needs a reset, which I quite agree with. First of all, time to get yourself in order and your staff training, your policies in place. Would it be fair to ask the question that in the interim period, while your staff are undertaking training, while you are getting yourself sorted out, there no more functions take place?
That would be acceptable. We've imposed on ourselves that condition anyway. There are no functions taking place at the moment.
Okay, has everybody said all that you wish to say in support of your case? Yes? Okay. The committee will now leave the room to deliberate, but I would ask that you all remain in the room, as we may need to call you back if there is any point of further clarification which we require. Committee will leave the room with the clerk, the legal advisor, and the legal advisor in order for the decision to be recorded for the clarification of legal issues. Has anyone any objections to our legal advisor leaving the room with the committee? Okay. Okay, I'll ask the committee to move into private session. Thank you. Don't know how long this will take, so I just ask you to hang around.
Sorry, yeah, work commitments. Ross Christie's had to go back to work, I'm afraid. So he sends his apologies.
Right, welcome back, everybody. Just for the record, I would like to say Councillor Kelvin Cook came into the room with us, but she did not contribute to the conversation at all. She was just there as a new member of the council to gain experience in these matters. Thank you. Right, this is a review application under Section 52 of the Licensing Act 2003 in respect of the club premises certificate, SHBC CP 0520C for Old Dean Bowling Club, Old Dean Recreation Ground, Camberley, Surrey, GU 194AY. The review was submitted by Surrey Police Inspector Sam Turner and related to all 4 of the licensing objects. Representatives have been heard by Surrey Police, County Councillor, County Borough Councillor, and by members of the Old Dean Bowling Club Committee. The Licensing Subcommittee wish to convey their concerns that the Old Dean Bowling Club Committee will need to step up to the job and to understand that they have responsibility for the oversight of the alcohol sales. This is not limited to one individual. We understand how important the club is to the community, but there are rules and regulations that need to be adhered to, and these seem to have been ignored for a long period of time. Representations were made by Mr. It's Peter Saville, Barrister for Surrey Police, Mr. Rab Carney, Licensing Officer for Surrey Police, Mr. Chris Turner, Old Dean Bowling Club Committee, Mr. Christie, Old Dean Bowling Club Committee, Councillor Trevor Hogg, Councillor Gordon, Councillor Garrett, Councillor White and Councillor Rakes. Our decision. The Licensing Subcommittee have decided to suspend the licence for a minimum of 28 days so that the mandatory steps can be taken and the club reopen with trained staff and new policies in place. All proposals as per the club's submission are to be imposed with the following amendments and additions. Condition 10 has been amended to read, the club must put 2 members through the SIA certification course so they can undertake a risk assessment prior to each function and to perform the role of door supervisor if deemed necessary by the risk assessments for example, large functions. Additional condition 9, a signing in book will be in use at all times and records kept of members and guests attending the premises. Suggested that this is kept at the door of the club and is looked at regularly. Additional condition 15, the club agrees to join and be active member in the local pub watch scheme. Additional wording for condition 16 was condition 14. Only children accompanied by an adult will be allowed into the licensed premises. Children will be supervised by an adult at all times. No children under the age of 12 allowed on the premises after 9 p.m. If you want qualification as to why we put that in, I have no problem telling you. Addition to condition 21, which was condition 19, all staff who serve alcohol shall receive suitable training, excuse me, including refresher training in relation to Challenge 25, proof of age policy, which shall be applied to the premises. This training shall be carried out every 6 months and a written record of the training shall be kept. Every person who completes the training shall sign and date the written record, and this record shall be countersigned by the club chairman or any person who holds a personal licence who is also a committee member. The training shall be carried out every 6 months by a certified training body. We are also going to publish an advisory note on this decision to the effect that clarification of Club Rule 8 is required to ensure no hiring of a hall when the bar is in use for any non-member functions. And the subcommittee would wish to see a minor amendment in the proposed wording Club Rules D. A member may invite up to 2 non-members into the clubhouse, and this ratio should remain in place at all times for functions. Not part of the decision but an advisory is that the club chairman advised that premises licence would be looked at or applied for within the next 2 years. We would like this to be hastened and done within the next 6 months, if possible, and if it's okay with the licensing officer, that this comes to committee to be decided. That's not a condition, it's just something we would like to see done. The decision will be published within 5 working days, and any appeals should be made within 21 working days of the date of publication to the Magistrates' Court. And that is the end of this meeting.